So how's work been? Selling much?
I had a good quarter. This month's been slow as hell.
What's all this bullshit about a building slump that they reckon's going to happen?
So how's work been? Selling much?
Oh, we're live. I swore.
Good quarter. This month's been slow as hell.
Sorry, I swore. That wasn't me, that was Carl. How's it going, buddy? Good?
Yeah, real good.
Still a bit nippy here in New Zealand. I see that Portugal reached 47 degrees today.
Heard about that.
And one of the guys on the Johnny Bean show was in Texas, Carl, and he was over the last couple of days, and he said it was 110 in Texas.
Yep, gets that high, yeah.
But apparently it's a dry heat.
West Texas, yes. Houston and Austin, no.
So what do they mean by a dry heat?
Desert. No humidity. Cold nights.
So that you can go into the shade and get some kind of relief.
Well, still hot, like Australia, but it's not like, for example, Austin, especially Houston. It's humid because it's low lying, it's swampy. You got the Gulf of Mexico, you got water. Think of Louisiana and sweat and mosquitoes, that sort of thing. A dry heat's more. It's manageable, to be honest.
So we got Jim Guidry here. He's jumped in to say g'day, and Jim's from Louisiana. So that gets humid, I understand, from programs I've watched in Louisiana.
Big time. Swamp.
Wow.
Below sea level.
Wow. That's where they had some floods, didn't they? Some flooding down there. Oh, no, that was New Orleans.
That's Louisiana, yeah.
Oh, around the same area? Yeah. That was, when was that? Hurricane Sandy or something?
Katrina,
that's it. Wow. And Jim's saying it's humid there. Wow, it's cold here. I'm not looking forward to the summer that we're going to have. Sorry about that, guys. Just doing a bit of housework. Hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, Jim, I'm doing well. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, Jim. I always see you in Ben Coombs' show, Canucks with Guitars, and Jim always jumps in on the Johnny Bean show. So, yeah, Jim's a guitar nut, a music nut, Carl.
Awesome.
So, what are we going to talk about today?
Just a continuation of the riffs, I guess.
Cool. I'm warm now. What have you got?
Just to recap last week, we obviously talked about Black and Blue and Some Girls, and we spoke in a bit more length about Tattoo You and Emotional Rescue, that sort of thing, and just how at that particular time music was changing. We had disco, we had punk, we had lots of different kind of angst musics. We had the punk movement, obviously, which was stripped down and anti-establishment. We had the disco, which was basically a hedonistic kind of a music. It's very much, it was very shiny and cocaine and dancing music, really, let's face it. And so it was a melting pot, and the Stones, as we know how as great they are, they managed to get through all that by not only doing what they were doing, but touching on some of that on that genre. So my first song, continuation of the series, I mean, I like the song, and once again, it reminds me of New York. lot of a lot of New York kind of inspired lyrics. Shattered. Just and I was thinking about this morning because we talked about this before. Shattered, they used the flange, didn't they? A special effect.
Yep.
Which, funnily enough, Waylon Jennings was a big instigator in that sort of particular sound. Very Fendery and very studio friendly.
Yeah, and another guy too, a guy called Eddie Van Halen was using the flanger as well.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just like Shattered. It's a hard song to play. I mean, you see those guys play it live. There's a lot of communication between band members. They're not looking at the stage, looking at each other. It's a hard one to pull off. Great song though. And we've got Ronnie to thank for a little bit of that too. Nice lead work there.
We've got Rambling that's joined us in the chat. Rambling has left us some nice comments over the course of the videos that we've done, Carl. So I think this is the first time Rambling's been in the chat live. So yeah, thanks Rambling for joining Carl and I.
Cool.
I don't think we can discount Ronnie's influence.
No, he's I mean, he suits that sound, that sound that I like, which is Some Girls Motion Rescue Tattoo You more so. He worked really well with Keith. So, I mean, the band was just basically evolved into a different style of sound, really. And you got to like it or lump it, really. And I don't mind it. Don't mind it at all.
So Shattered is the the Glimmer Twins. No unidentified musicians on that album. Maybe Simon Kirke playing the congas. Maybe.
Don't know about that. Yeah, definitely, probably 3 guitars.
Pedal steel guitar definitely going on in there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think Keith or someone, Mick or Ron, was doing a kick drum.
Well, according to my information, I reckon it may have been Ronnie that was doing the bass drum.
Oh, really?
But yes, somebody. Ronnie takes the lion's share of the instrumental parts. In his absence of Bill, he's on bass. So he even plays bass. Ronnie plays bass.
Wow.
So where was Bill?
Don't know. Just probably one of those sessions where it felt right and they just got it done. Maybe, I don't know. It happens like that sometimes. Yeah, we don't need you today. We already did it. So Keith's definitely doing that chunky rhythm, and then obviously Ronnie's doing those really tasty little ascending or crescendo leads, whatever you want to call it, and then not an easy song to play at all.
I've never played it.
I've never even attempted to play it myself. I never wanted to. It's just I'm just going to let it be a great song.
No, I don't even know. I obviously I love the song. So what type of genre did that song fit into when it was released? What would that have been the new wave kind of new wave?
Excuse me. Should be shattered. Love and hope and
funk.
a little bit of everything. A little bit of funk, definitely rock. A little bit of disco, maybe, but mainly the core of it was stripped down rock. I mean, I'm just going to say the band was running hot because, I don't want to sound like a parrot, but hard song to play, but only E and B chords. I mean, it's just a tight unit, and that is a real tight sound. So yeah, no, I've always liked that song and really well recorded. Great song to listen to when you're in your car and it just comes out of nowhere.
So again, that song was recorded in a couple of places. Recorded in France, apparently, and also at Atlantic Studios in New York. So, and the sound engineer is a guy called Chris Kimsey. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, I think he did the whole Some Girls album. Did a great job. Very well recorded. So yeah, very good job.
What did he go on and do? Do you know?
I don't know. Don't know much. I just remember him on the liner notes on that album. Don't know much about him. He might have been just a hired gun, or they might have been hunting him down. Yeah, it was a funny time actually. That '78 because it was around the time that Keith got busted in Toronto. It was about '77. So was Keith straight on that album, or was Keith was he weaning off, or was he on methadone? Who knows?
When did he get busted? Because this
late '77.
Okay, so that's interesting because they recorded this late '77 and early March.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if he was cold turkey or not, but I definitely know the heat was on him. He'd been, he had quite a lot of smack in a foreign country, and they were pushing the book at him at that time. He was not going to be let off for being a rock star. He had to do some charity shows and really make an effort and come in clean. I think that's when he became clean.
So here's the lyrics. So shattered, love and hope and sex and dreams are still surviving in the street. Look at me, I'm in tatters. I'm a shattered. Friends are so alarming, and my lover's never charming. Life's just a cocktail party on the street's Big Apple.
Very New York. And a lot of the lyrics are tongue-in-cheek about just the chaos in New York, about people dressed in glad wrap and homeless and just all sorts. Just dysfunction, really.
So that glad wrap, was that type of that Sex Pistols kind of thing where they were dressed in plastic and vinyl? Is that the plastic he's talking about?
I don't know.
Maybe he was a prophet. Plastic people?
Don't know. Yeah. Still surviving on the streets. Look at me. Yeah. Clever song.
Yeah, Jim's saying great song. So we agree with Jim. And Jim is from Shreveport.
Wow. Yep, I know Shreveport. Won money there.
Yeah, Shreveport. And isn't
that's when Kenny Wayne Shepherd, yeah.
Kenny Wayne Shepherd's from Shreveport.
He's got a casino in Shreveport. It's a neat town.
And we've got our friend Simon Williams. And I understand Simon is back from sunny Spain. He's back in the UK. So no doubt back to the grind after his 2 week sojourn. He's going to be popping on with us on a, what do they call them in England? They call them a bank holiday. We call them public holidays here. In a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So Shattered might mix using a shriek shrang, a type of music vocal style alternating between sung and spoken elements.
Yeah, there's a bit of rap going on.
Yeah.
Scat, what do you want to call it?
It's interesting because I did some research and I listened to Black and Blue over the course of the week. You know, obviously we were talking about it last Sunday. And again, it's a phenomenal album. But what was interesting is I did some reading, and the guitarist who played the guitar, what was his name? The American guy?
Harvey Mandel or Wayne Perkins?
Wayne Perkins. It's interesting because Wayne Perkins was giving a interview, and he gave an insight into how the Rolling Stones worked in the studio. And I hadn't seen this interview, and he said it was interesting. He said Keith came in and they're playing, and then they're just doing something, and there's this noise going on, and then he saw Mick go over to the corner, and Mick is doing something in the corner while this music's going, and it's apparently not sounding quite good. And then they finish that, and then they come back, and then they go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, count in, and he said it was just amazing.
Once Keith had arrived.
Once Mick had come back from the corner with these lyrics, and you know, they came together and, you know, into what the center of the studio, counted in, and then he said it was amazing because when Keith was playing, it sounded horrible, whatever Keith was doing.
But as a band, they sounded tight.
But then when they came back in after, you know, Mick was in that corner and had worked out some lyrics, come back, and then I suppose what I liked about reading that is this whole thing that we hear, and we've probably experienced in some degree ourselves, the chemistry aspect of you know, how that's just important for a band.
Oh, it's like anything. I mean, it's like there's just certain people that gel. I mean, you and I both, you more so, and I used to be a big fan, was rugby and sports and league and all sorts of music. There's just certain people that can gel, that just lock in. It's like when you read all those interviews about, I mean, Chili Peppers, here's an example. Flea, Anthony Kiedis. Once John Frusciante left, and we love him, I think he's incredible. They had that guy, what's his name?
Oh, I know the guy, the short fellow.
Dave Navarro.
The short fellow with the tattoos.
Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction. So he had the look and he had the attitude and everything. But when I read it, he said he just didn't gel. He just didn't.
One hot minute, I think, was it the album that they recorded with him?
Yeah. So he's probably a good guitarist in his own right, and obviously worked with Jane's Addiction. But you know, like I said many episodes before, certain bands are like gangs, are like families. You can't replace time. That's what makes these great bands great, like the Zeppelins and the Roses and all those guys. I mean, Black Sabbath. They're just the chemistry and all that time. It's just they do stuff without even thinking about it or even speaking.
Well, Simon and I had a conversation recently, and we were talking about The Edge from U2, and but there's one thing I remember, one DVD I saw, and Bono's talking, and he said right from the start, he said U2 was a gang. That's the way that we were right from the word. We weren't a band, we were a gang first. You know, we were brothers, and that's what we had to be. And then they became a band. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit like I just watched a movie called Believer. I won't go into detail, but that's how I struggled with bands was you got to have a passion not only for the music but for believing each other and having some core beliefs and where are we going with this.
So when you were in the States and you were in a couple of bands, was that something that you guys discussed? Was that something you guys purposely got together and said, well, look, these are our core beliefs. This is what we're going to work around. Was that something the leader in the band did?
Yeah, well, the leader of the band was a bass player, is an older guy, and he was very structured. I didn't mind the structure aspect, and we had another guy who was the least talented in the band who was trying to call all the shots, who was a drummer that made lots of noise. So it disintegrated because there was no direction. The drummer wanted to get stoned and jam. The bass player wanted to be structured. I was more along the structured side of things because I know that if you don't have discipline and putting in the work, you're going to get nowhere. Jamming's great, but you do that when you're good, I mean, I was thinking about this before. The Stones obviously jammed a little bit, but their first 3-4 albums are mainly covers. They didn't find their feet till they had a few albums under their belt. Then they could write some songs. I'm a big believer in structure. And that comes from beliefs, communication, practice, time, energy, lots of things.
Well, yeah, look, and I agree with you. If we look at the Stones, clearly what appealed to them as individuals was the love of that music that they were hearing, and they wanted to reproduce that in a band. So they were lucky enough to find some cool cats at an early age, and didn't have to go through too many duds. But then, like you said, recorded a couple of great albums because they were playing what they wanted to play. But in that process of recording and touring those 4 albums, they tapped into music that they had themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That came out obviously pretty darn well.
Well, yeah. Well, still, yeah. To this day, they sound still a bit poppy. The first songs, Last Time, and I mean, Satisfaction. I've heard a million times, and it's obviously a great riff. But I could easily forget it, to be honest. But that was just the start of what they were becoming. And that was through just discipline as well. In order for them to compose these great songs, they had to be a tight band. And to be a tight band, they had to have lots of discipline, structure, communication. I mean, we talk about late 60s, early 70s, all these jam bands, which are great. But sometimes, even Eric Clapton talked about it with the Cream and stuff. He looks back and like, well, what a pile of rubbish.
Well, exactly. And he learnt that and realised any bands that he was going to have in the 70s, even during his drunk period, there was some discipline going on. The bands that he played with had to get it right. Otherwise, he would kick them in the backside.
Well, didn't you say, was it Start Me Up or some song from Black and Blue last week? It was 70 takes. That's the band that is committed. I mean, Bob Dylan, on the other flip side of the coin, was a one-take guy, and that works for him. He's raw, he's rugged, he's a poet, he's his own man, he's an individual. He's not really a band, is he? That works for him, but a band is different. There is.
So Simon's just taken us down a little bit of a detour, but I think it's probably worth you and I discussing. Simon's asking, have you seen the Eagles documentary? Brilliant exposition of the band as a gang versus the band as a business. And yes, I have. It's these 2 versions, part 1 and part 2. And I totally agree. It's an interesting documentary into the recording process, what the recording companies were doing or trying to do to bands at that time. Yeah, and how they tried to maintain some kind of independence. So, have you seen that? Have you seen those DVDs, Carl?
No. No.
I'll dig them out for you because yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah. Hey, Jace, how's it going? It's good to see Jace again. He's another guy that we catch on the Johnny Bean show, and he's also a regular on Ben Coombs' show as well. So thanks for joining us, Jason. Yeah, I agree. It's a good documentary into music during the 70s, and I really didn't understand until I saw that documentary how big they were. They were huge, man.
Absolutely. The 70s gave us the arena bands, bands that were, the 60s gave us, a little bit of everything, pop, beat. The 69 tour was the start of big stadiums, big shows. But 70s, especially the late 70s, Fleetwood Mac, the later version of Fleetwood Mac, obviously, Eagles, Aerosmith, Elton John.
Yes.
We're talking huge. Queen, massive concerts. We're talking, not uncommon for 100,000 people to roll up, especially in America. And also big festivals too. They were coming along big. Those festivals came around about the early 70s. That California Jam with Black Sabbath, that was like 250,000 people.
Wow,
unbelievable. But getting back to the Eagles, yeah, you're right. They're just I wouldn't say America's favourite son, but very, very agreeable music. I don't mind Eagles at all. I've been ripped a few times. I just own the two albums, Best of Volume 1, Best of Volume 2, and I think they're great.
I don't mind them either, and I'm going to tell you. I saw the BBC did a documentary series, the history of popular music, and it's fascinating. It's a fantastic documentary. Simon probably would know it, and they also did a history of country music. Anyway, what was interesting about the Eagles is that these guys came from country backgrounds. They were playing banjos and mandolins, and they were really good at clearly at music. Got together and did their version of what they thought was country music.
Yeah.
Which went on to be what do they call it now? Classic rock.
Well, I can hear lots and lots of Neil Young in the early Eagles, lots of it. I mean, the guy that died just recently was from Michigan, and the drummer was from Texas. And, they were from all over the show. They were basically almost like a supergroup, really. They're a more polished version of CCR in some ways too.
Glenn Fry.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Great actor.
That's right. And I don't mind some of his cheesy 80s songs. I mean, they were just like perfect songs from movies. The Heat Is On, Dirty Laundry. Those guys are talented. Let's face it. They had the ear for a certain sound.
Yeah. Well, and I think Jim's made an interesting comment about Don Felder. Great.
And they were a super group because a song that I like, played with a girl once, the bass player sings.
I can't tell you
why. Yeah. I mean, just the whole. I mean, Hotel California. It's the drummer singing. I mean, and it's a bit like Mick Taylor in a way. The Eagles. Here's another great comparison. the band really blew up with the advent of Joe Walsh.
Well, you know, so that's a whole another story. Joe Walsh, my God. Man.
He has a Kiwi connection too.
Joe Walsh is just, yeah, unbelievable. Yeah. So Simon's saying, did you know the story of Glyn Johns producing the Eagles' first album? No, don't know, Simon. Jeepers, that Glyn Johns gets around, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's just there's a book called Soundman, and I think it's the Glyn Johns. Yeah, I need to read that. Has anybody in the chat read that? Can I ask Jim and Jason? I assume Jason's in North America too. What was it about going to these big festivals that Carl mentioned earlier? You know, 250,000 people going to these big shows, and in the 70s, you know, 100,000 people going to watch these groups. What was it, because of the music, or was it just because that's what people did?
Probably a lot of it was value for money. 6 shows, 6 bands, 1 day. And obviously cheap booze and other assortments. Basically a weekend rager.
So Jason's from North Carolina. When you were in the States, did you go to North Carolina?
No, I might have driven through it. I wished I'd stopped. It's supposed to be beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and that's part of the South too, isn't it?
North and South Carolina, Virginia,
yeah.
Georgia. It's North Carolina is known for 2 things. All the Indianapolis 500, all those guys, Dale Earnhardt, all those guys are from there.
Wow,
that's where the bootlegging came from. See, they hot rods came from North Carolina because they had to trick out their cars to get away from the cops.
Beat the cops, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so Jason, do you have any bootleggers in your family? Moonshiners? Kitting out V8s to beat the cops?
A lot of bluegrass, a lot of amazing pickers from there.
So Jason's saying one of the big things was, you know, music, partying, and that was the norm. So yeah. And Glyn Jones was asked to go and see them. This is the Eagles, and didn't really like them until during the lunch break. They got an acoustic guitar and just played that and sang the close harmony. Oh, that's Simon. Yeah, you're right. That close harmony stuff of that they start off. I was sitting on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, and they have that close harmony segment before the song.
Absolutely,
it's mind blowing.
I tell you, all that comes from bluegrass. Levine Brothers, North Carolina, South Carolina, onto the Everly Brothers, who made it popular, onto the Byrds, then the Flying Burrito Brothers, Neil Young, and then the Eagles. That's the link. So radio friendly, bluegrass, acoustic key, country, rocky, you name it.
Some Bill Monroe in there.
Joe Walsh with some bluesy licks.
Oh, yeah. He just took them to another level. He took them from the stratosphere to another universe. So Jason's saying he's 4th generation. He's a 4th generation bootlegger.
Cool.
Yeah, you got to remember, Jason. New Zealand's only a young country. We're only 150 years old. So yeah. And we're inspired by American movies too. So some of the great movies we've seen have always starred bootleggers, haven't they? Seven Bridges Road, awesome. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree. It's that Joe Walsh is just phenomenal.
Absolutely. He does a lot of that picking that Mick Taylor does too. That I won't demonstrate it, but the double stops, yeah.
Have you got your guitar handy?
Yeah.
Well, can you grab it?
I'll try and attempt the lick.
Don't be shy. Watch Thunder Road. Yeah. Okay, I will, Jace. Yeah, appreciate that. One of my favourite films, Jace, is Gods and Generals. Great Civil War movie. Okay, Carl's on.
Oh, it doesn't sound very good. It's out of tune. But yeah, just double stops, country rock licks.
That live jam that they do, Hotel California.
Yep.
With him and the other guitarist. Is it? Gosh, who's the other guitarist? It's classic. It's a classic, and he's doing those double stops. Yeah, it's outstanding.
And they play in unison, which is amazing.
Yeah, gosh.
What I could never figure out. I always thought that Joe Walsh was this Gibson Les Paul Gibson freak. The other guy's playing an SG. He's playing a Tele.
A Tele. Yeah. He's playing a Tele. He's getting that beautiful tone out of it. Must be going through a Marshall, surely. Well, jeepers, even then, Tele's through a Marshall. Oh. Don Henny, that's it. All these names. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, Don Henley and yeah, the two guitar attack, and we've seen that before. That two guitar attack started, with Fleetwood Mac, with Peter Green and Danny Kirwan. They were instrumental. We can't underestimate how important they were in bringing that two guitar attack to rock music.
Oh, it's beautiful. The Fleetwood Macs, the Allman Brothers, Santana. A lot of people don't know this about Santana too. The guitar player that came on with Santana after about the third album is the main guy for what's that band? Don't Stop Believing.
Neil Schon.
Journey. Neil Schon. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Neil Schon was this 19-year-old Danny Kirwan protege. He was in about 3 of Santana's albums.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Neither till a few years ago. So if you're fortunate to have a few Santana albums, the third or the fourth, and you open up the gatefold, there's a young Neil Schon there, super young.
What do you know? What these albums were? Do you know what that he played on, or what years? Because I'll save them on Spotify, and I'll look. It's important that we tell the truth on this show. I don't know a lot about Santana. I don't know a lot. So yeah, happy to admit that.
3 albums with Santana. Santana 3, Caravanersai, Santana 4.
Wow.
And then on to Journey. So, yeah, protege.
So Jim's saying early Journey album, rock big time. Early Journey albums rock. Okay, I'm going to have to check them out too. I'm going to have to check them out. I really appreciate Evolution, Departure. Okay, I'm going to have to check them out. I appreciate the heads up, guys. It's yeah, it's wonderful. It's I'm excited.
Oh, it's just a good period, a really good period in time.
So when was that, Carl? Early 70s. Those albums came out.
The Journeys or the Santanas?
The Santana albums that you make reference to.
71 and 72.
71, 72. Wow. So Jim's saying he grew up on that. Jeepers. We've discussed this before a few times on the show, Jim, about, the music that you're saying you grew up on, the music I grew up on, the music Carl grew up on. What are aspiring guitar players, growing up on now, listening to, probably the stuff that we all did. There's not much out there. Journey with heavy.
It's great. No, there is very. I mean, you just Google his old photos. He's got a big afro and everything. Yeah.
So Journey. So just correct me if I'm wrong, because I may have started a couple of years ago watching a Netflix documentary where Journey recruited a Filipino guy to sing in their band because Perry didn't want to come back and sing, so they got this guy from a tribute band, and apparently he's a killer singer.
Oh, he's identical, apparently, yeah. So Steve Perry and no Steve Perry's just the same. Doesn't look like him, but sounds like him.
But I read too somewhere recently that they're thinking of reforming too with Steve Perry.
I wouldn't have a clue. Yeah. I would not have a clue.
Must be a lot of cash, man. A lot of cash in these nostalgia tributes and these nostalgia tours, eh?
Oh, well, first of all, great songs, and then it rings of good memories, good times, your youth, it's timeless and irreplaceable.
So Journey were a heavy band. Wow. Okay, we're gonna cut the show short, and I'm gonna check it out. No. Jason's saying seen him with Journey live. Close your eyes and listen, and on several songs you couldn't tell the difference. Wow. Yeah, because that guy Steve Perry has a unique voice, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I remember that song "Oh Sherry." Was that a Journey song, or was that something that he did when he was single, as a single artist? Do you remember?
Let's have a look.
One of Journey's drummers was Ashley Dunbar. My gosh, no wonder.
Steve Perry solo.
Oh, it was a solo album.
Yeah. Street Talk.
So Simon's saying that Ashley Dunbar played with Journey early on.
Did not know that.
Wow. Steve Perry's solo album, yeah. And he played with Eric Burdon and John Mayall. Yep. How old's he?
Who's
he
that?
Must be Ainsley Dunbar. He must be in his 70s. Is he still alive? Is he still alive, Simon? What else have you got, buddy?
Oh,
you doing some research?
Oh, 72, still alive?
Still alive?
Yeah.
Wow.
Liverpool. Liverpool. Yeah, he was in the Blues Breakers, wasn't he? Or
Yep.
Jeff Beck Group, David Bowie. Been around. White Snake, Jefferson Starship, Sammy Hagar.
Really? You played with Sammy?
Ian Hunter, Paul Kantner, Nils Lofgren, Mick Ronson, Herbie Mann, Lou Reed, David Bowie, Frank Zappa. Wow. Obviously very good.
But Van Halen didn't get on with Journey.
Did not know that.
No, they toured together. And Van Halen would prank them.
Oh. And that Journey never sense of humour.
No, because clearly, what was happening was the people were turning up to see Van Halen, and they were the biggest thing on the block, weren't they? When their first album came out, so. Steve Machine Gun Smith is the original drummer, and Simon's saying, brilliant name, Steve Machine Gun Smith. So was Steve Machine Gun Smith an American or an Englishman? Someone's going to answer that in the chat. What's your next riff, buddy?
Oh, do you have one?
No, I'll listen to yours.
Oh, okay. All right. Just in continuation of that period, I just quite like that Let Me Go. If the Rolling Stones can do anything well, strip down rock and roll. And it's got a bit of a rockabilly little lick going on there, and just a good back to basics barroom song. Real good. And if you really want to hear an amazing version, that Live at Leeds 1982 was incredible. So, yeah. No, I just really like that one. It just goes to show you they can do so much, get so much mileage out of E, A, and B.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this last week because we sort of went on a few different tangents, but I always love Before They Make Me Run.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's obviously a reference to Keith and Anita being arrested in Toronto for possession of heroin.
Yep.
And apparently could have, what's a life sentence in Canada? 10 years?
Yeah, well, from memory, years ago, watching the 25 by 5, it was pretty serious. They had the, what do they call them, the Canadian Mounties, and they had the judge, and they were going to throw the book at them. He was caught with a lot of weight, and they were, it was threatening actually the band as a whole as well. Well, yeah, and it actually inspired a great song. Here's another connection with Neil Young, Nils Lofgren, Keith Don't Go. So it was a big deal. People were worried. It wasn't a couple of joints or a couple of pills. It was quite a lot of heroin. And they even were talking about him transporting it over the border. Where did it come from? They were not impressed. So, yeah, I think that was a huge wake-up call. Massive.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's interesting too is that he didn't play that apparently live with the Stones. He played it live first with the New Barbarians.
Which was obviously Ron was in there. It was like a pickup band, of various musicians. And what a lot of those shows were charity for him to redeem himself. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think he did a lot of charity shows with that band. So, yeah, he got let off, but it wasn't not lightly. So, yeah, no, it was an interesting time. They had some on, you know, and Mick wasn't very happy at all, Mick Jagger. And we've talked about this before. And a credit to Mick Jagger was the fact that he was the glue. And I think Keith realised years later, after his head cleared and looking back, he was like, "What a good friend! You know, you're the best showman in the world. You're a blues brother, and you held it down while I was in rough shape."
So do you think, you know, like all good mates, do you think you would have picked up the phone and said, "Hey, man,
What's going on?
what's going on? Yeah, I've been watching you do this stuff for the last 5 years, and you've been lucky."
Call it a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah. Are we going to call this band quits or what?
Well, if you think about it, Keith's always been like Rolling Stones first. No one messes with the Stones. You don't leave the Stones unless it's in a box. Blah blah blah. Keith was probably realizing I'm actually a hypocrite. I'm trying to call all the shots and I'm trying to be the leader of the band, but I'm actually falling by the wayside badly.
I'm just going to do a quick shout out, mate. Jason's going to hit the hay because he can hardly keep his eyes open. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, Jace. We'll catch you next time. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's been a while since I've read it's been a while since I've read Life. If anyone hasn't read that, they need to. But I think he makes a reference in there, Carl, doesn't he, that I don't know where he's making that reference in relation to what episode, but Keith makes a reference to say that this band was too important to him.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, at that particular stage, 78, been going since 62, 8 and 8, 16 years of hard work. You know, so many people relying on them. Forget about just the band, but the managers and the roadies. It's a corporation, really. If you think about it, without being commercial, it's actually a large entity.
I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to put it down to the fact that becoming a father and realizing that at some stage in his life had to have some effect on him having to pull his head in, and realizing, well, look, yeah, maybe I should just drink bourbon and smoke.
Yeah, it's legal.
Yeah.
So he replaced the heroin for a bottle of Jack Daniels, I think, or Jim Beam.
Yeah, but he didn't become from what I understand, the crazy alcoholic that Eric did after Eric kicked his heroin addiction.
Oh, it's Keith handle it, eh?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, apparently Keith could
manage it.
Could manage it. Yeah. Yeah,
no, it's yeah. It definitely does look like every. Yeah.
So what's your opinion on emotional rescue? You touched on it last week. You said it was I don't know if you use these words, a patchy album.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a look here. So Let Me Go, which I chose, is from Emotional Rescue. And then obviously the actual song Emotional Rescue is not bad. I don't own it, never will. It really was an in-between album, really.
Do you think it was an in-between album because of the cracks that were appearing? You know, the mixed divorce. So obviously he was focused on other things as opposed to the Rolling Stones at that time.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, every great band, great poet, great actor reaches a burnout phase. I mean, here's a few songs: "Dance," which is not bad. "Send It to Me," don't know anything about that. "Let Me Go," I don't mind that song. "Where the Boys Go," not a very good song. "Emotional Rescue," a good song. "She's So Cold" was a bit catchy. "All About You," I don't know much about that song.
And then you had Ronnie Wood apparently having an affair with the Canadian Prime Minister's wife at that time too. So that apparently caused a scandal.
So, allegedly, yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think Ronnie was developing a before they call it crack cocaine. The first initial term for it was freebasing, and he was freebasing a lot. So Keith said, "I don't mind needles, I don't mind alcohol, I don't mind weed, I don't mind powder, I don't like glass tubes." Keith rules. Oh, glass pipes, what do you want to call it? Crack pipes.
So our friend David Ennis has jumped in the chat and he's saying hi to you and to me. So hi, Dave. Good to see you, Dave. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, look, I'm going to say I've about that album. I've tried to listen to that album a lot of times, and like you, I'm going to say, yeah, it's patchy. Yeah, it's all over the place. Actually, you know, Indian Girl, Where the Boys Go, Down in the Hole. Yeah, I don't know. But I suppose the standout song for me, being a young guy hearing it, was and trying to work out what the heck was going on, was that song "Emotional Rescue." You know, the lyrics. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. That bass line is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Well, here we go. This is interesting. So, obviously, besides the album was recorded at a great place, NASA, Bahamas. These guys knew where to record albums. Jamaica, Bahamas, Paris. What a life! But this is interesting. Emotional Rescues was the first Rolling Stone album recorded following Keith Richards' exoneration from a Toronto drugs charge.
Mm.
Would have landed him in jail for years. Fresh from the revitalization of Some Girls, Rich and Jagger led the Stones through dozens of new songs, some of which were held over for Tattoo You, picking only 10 for Emotional Rescue. So yeah, I might have been just an album, an in-between album, just a burnout, where they might have were tired. Keith was probably, he was obviously drying out. Probably creatively-wise, they were just running low.
And another song where Bill's not playing bass.
Okay.
Ronnie's playing bass on that song.
Which one's that?
Emotional Rescue.
Let's have a look.
The start of the patchy album period. Yeah, Simon's right.
Wow. Okay. Mick Jagger lead vocals, piano, Keith Richards guitar, Ronnie Wood on bass guitar.
Yep.
Far out. Bill Wyman string synthesizer. So Ronnie, I mean, he's got a bit of funk in him.
So apparently Bobby Keys, when he first heard that the Mick vocals, he thought it was Minnie Mouse. And you can imagine Bobby Keys saying that, because if you have a look at him on some of the DVDs and the clips, he certainly is a Texan with a great sense of humor.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So Mick wrote the song on electric piano, and from the beginning was sung in falsetto, similar to Marvin Gaye's lead vocal on the 77 hit Got to Give It Up. So there's obviously very much some disco, funk, soul, R&B stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's a song that's close to me because I remember trying to, I'm trying to think how old I was, maybe 13 or 14, and just trying to work out, because you could clearly hear the lyrics on that song. I will be your knight in shining armor, coming to your emotional, and and then giving up, and then just grooving along with the bass line. Ding, ticka, ding, ticka, ding, ticka, ding, ding. Oh, it was pretty good.
I mean, even non-Stones fans, that sort of song would just stick in your mind. It's just one of those songs.
What about She's So Cold?
Catchy song. I'm hot for her, but she's so cold. Yeah, not just a little bit shallow. I mean,
I agree.
They do put on compilations, but just not. Yeah, I think by the time Tattoo You came around, they probably thought to themselves, "All right, Keith said I'm clean, guys. I'm going to give it more effort." And they probably read the reviews of Emotional Rescue and said, "Oh well, you know what? That disco's over. Once again, this is the biggest banquet moment. Let's get back to the rock."
Well, one of the reasons why I do have a soft spot for She's So Cold is because finally Bill plays bass.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So so Keith and Ron had been playing bass a lot during that period.
Apparently.
Bill one wasn't around, or they alienating him, or he didn't have the feel, or
I haven't done any research on that to answer that question. Maybe if Simon's still watching, he might offer a view on why. Maybe it was just because I'm just trying to think. When I read the book Stone Alone that you loaned me, I can't remember. No, I can't remember the details, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Cool. So my final song, which is on the Tattoo You album, Strip Down Rock and Roll, Hang Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the three I got today. Just simple chords. You and I both talked about that guy on YouTube, James Jameson, and Keith's just this. He's very unorthodox. He'll play simple chords, and there'll be a made-up chord which actually just makes the whole progression, and that's what this song has. A very unique chord structure, simple chords, an unorthodox chord that works within the 3-chord, 4-chord frame.
I interrupted you before, and I'm sorry, because you were raising an interesting point. So they had some average reviews on a couple of albums, and they decided that they were going to have a biggest banquet moment with the next album.
Well, I'm just surmising. I'm just thinking possibly that's true.
Okay, well, what an album. Because I think most of us would agree. Yeah. Most of us will agree that Tattoo You certainly put a stamp on those late 70s albums.
Yeah, I think that I think disco for them was probably something they flirted with. They probably knew it had they probably within their wisdom and being around the block a few times and seeing musical genres come and go, they knew it was probably going to be short-winded. So back to basics. Hang Fire, Back to the Blues, Black Limousine. Yeah, back to biggest banquet moment.
Yeah, I think what we should do, because I think that album is more than just talking about 3 songs. I'd like to talk about that album a little bit more on the next show, because I think that whole album at the early 80s, in the early 80s, you know, obviously set a benchmark and influenced a whole lot of other bands. But what's interesting too, and we can't forget this, around 81, you know, we had Bill Wyman, and, you know, we've mentioned him before earlier in the show, who was a little bit frustrated because he couldn't get any of his songs on albums. So he went off and released a couple of songs, didn't he? And I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but it's something Rockstar, was released in 81, and, you know, went on to be you know, number 2, and that was a big hit here in New Zealand.
Really?
Mm.
Well, I think he actually did a couple of whole albums.
Yes.
Like Ronnie Wood did a couple of whole albums too, which
yes. Slide
know,
on this, I think, was yeah.
Give Me Some Neck.
Yeah, slide on. Yes. Oh, gee, I can't remember. But yeah. You're right. But Simon adds another interesting comment. You know, that Ronnie played bass with Jeff Beck. Yep, that's correct. Yeah. You know, we can't discredit how cool Ronnie is as a musician.
Yep. Well, he was just a young little brother, because his older brother, I think his name was Art, was part of the scene. And Ronnie was just this young little brother, but like Steve Ray Vaughan with Jimmy, just like, you know, probably following the pack and is creeping through, you know, the window and, you know, opening the door and having a look and listen and just absorbing it all.
Little brothers sponging off older brothers. Nothing changes. I'm an older brother.
Yeah.
And if my younger brother's watching this, I didn't mean it. I give freely.
Yeah, because my next 3 songs are off that album, so that's a good idea. We'll touch on that next week. We'll talk about Tattoo You as an album, because I think they had a different producer, and the album was so good that it gave them the platform to do that massive 81 tour.
Can I just want to show you something, if that's okay. I don't know if this is going to show up, but I'll have a look at that. Can you see that?
Drum kit.
Okay, so that's Charlie's drum kit. Now look how simple that is.
Minimal.
All he has is a snare drum, one 12-inch tom-tom, a 22-inch bass drum, a 16-inch floor tom, and a couple of hi-hats. My gosh. Wow. And that kit hasn't changed.
And you know where he gets that minimal kit from, right?
Well, I'm going to say it's because he's a jazz man.
Correct. Less is more. So those jazz guys are amazing. Give me a snare, give me a ride cymbal, a splash, a bass drum, and that's about it. That's all I need.
So these guys, you know, like like Alex Van Halen, you know, he's got this huge drum set. Mike Portney, who used to be the drummer in Dream Theater, it's got all these drums everywhere. Don't get me wrong.
Vince from Pantera.
Yeah. But again, look at John Bonham though. John Bonham, very simple drum set too. Very simple. Didn't change.
Yeah, I just think that's just an entirely different sound altogether, that hard rock metal sound.
So Simon's made a comment here. It's a symbol of Bill Wyman's gradual estrangement from the band until he left. Yeah, that was him. Yeah, recording that album and releasing it. I agree. But you're getting back to the drums, mate. I just I can't play drums. I've tried. And I take my hat off to any drummer, even a bad drummer, because to be a bad drummer, you've got to be able to move your feet. And I can't do it. Have you tried?
Oh, a couple of times. Just I think drummers are born. I think they start hitting things at an early age.
Did you ever jump on Chris's kit when you were jamming with Chris when you guys were playing together? Did you ever have a go?
Just a couple of times. I'd just rather keep that to the professionals. I mean, I know that there's musicians out there that can do it all.
Because I caught up with Andrew. He said that he caught up with you a couple of years ago when you were in R&S. Andrew, the jib stopper.
Andrew, the jib stopper.
Do you remember the jib fixer? And he's great mates with Chris Early. He was great mates with them.
Oh, Andrew Chapman.
Chappie. Yeah. I caught up with him a couple of weeks ago. He popped in and said g'day and asked where you were. And anyway, sorry about this, people in the chat watching the show. But
because I was trying to come Festal.
Yeah, but he said that Chris was an awesome drummer.
Yeah. Well, he did about 4 years at the Cosy Club as just a
drumming to a dance band.
Yeah. Friday and Saturday night, just getting $200 a night, just doing that for years on end. Boring as hell, but that would have honed his skills.
So what's your theory? You think drummers? That's an interesting theory. Drummers are made because they start banging things at an early age.
I think so.
Yeah. All the great drummers that I've read about, all the bands that I love, they were all drumming at an early age. They weren't failed guitarists or failed bass players. They all knew Ringo Starr, Charlie, John Bonham. They all knew right from the word go they wanted to be drummers, didn't they?
You haven't read too much into it, but that would be the feeling I would get, that they, because you're talking about a lot of gear. You'd have to be pretty passionate to play the drums, and a lot of them are quite, I wouldn't say aggressive people, but very, they're hitting things pretty hard. Definitely, they reckon bass players are super laid back. Guitar players are a bit sensitive. Drummers are, very extroverted out there. Well, especially the rock ones, So
well, Bonham certainly was, and so was Ringo. But you look at Charlie. He's a jazz drummer.
Entirely different.
He's cool jazz.
But I think, and singers, as we've known, are very much super confident. Your Barry Hancocks, just very extroverted. Very, I think, yeah, definitely unique personalities come into play when it comes time to choose an instrument. See, a lot of guitar players start out as bass players, or a lot of bass players start out as guitar players. They switched around. That's the beauty of of the string instrument. You can switch around.
Well, you look at Clapton, who's one of my idols. Clapton, the first song he sang, and it was forced on by John Mayer, was Rambling, wasn't it? Rambling on My Mind, and you listen to that now, 50 years later, it's pretty good. It's pretty a young 19-year-old or a 20-year-old. It's good because you can hear something obviously that's nervous. There's some nervousness there, and I think that's what's great about it. But he says many times too, and certainly in his biography, that singing was something that he had to grow into, and it was all about confidence, and so the more that he developed confidence as a guitar player, the more that fed into him being confident as a singer.
Well, the biggest fear that most people have in the world is not flying or heights, and I suffer from this, is a fear of public speaking. So singers are naturally probably pretty good public speakers. So singers are definitely very confident, sometimes overconfident. But, they're at the front. They're the leader. Mick Jagger is just something very unique and special. That we've got to thank them. They are very much a visual.
Mick Jagger was unique and special when he was 19 years old. We're talking about a guy that, some of those black and white BBC clips where he's standing there singing, purposely, everyone else had their hair combed perfectly, and there's clips here with Mick's hair a little bit unkempt, and we've discussed this a few times on the show, the Tammy Show, where he jumps up and down, trying to be a white James Brown, and a lot of people would have thought, what's this cat doing?
And
a few people would have gone, wow. And a lot of people would have gone, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, he was definitely very much influenced, obviously, by the American scene, but he was also very much a guy that would study, almost like a method actor. So he would purposely delay his lyrics or mumble his lyrics or forget words. He was very much an actor, and he became an actor in movies. He was very much, and he's talked about being a stripper and being, he was very much an actor as well.
No argument from me.
Yeah, so that takes a very unique personality. And, his dad was a PE teacher, so he was obviously in his genes not only to be wiry and fit and lean and spry, but also very confident too.
That 1972, ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones, and you see him on stage and the way that he's interacting with what's really interesting about Mick Jagger, especially around that era, is that Mick Jagger's doing something really, really unique. He's not the face of the front man of this band, and there's the audience. What Mick Jagger's doing is Mick Jagger is the conduit between the audience and the band behind him.
Yep.
That's the unique thing about Mick Jagger, in my opinion. He's reacting with the band separately via the audience and vice versa. And it shows that, ladies and gentlemen, the Rolling Stones is just a wonderful example of how he's doing that, in my opinion.
Yeah. He's definitely, at the start of the show, we talked about chemistry. And quite a few shows ago, I talked about intellect, that these guys are not dumb musicians, they're very intelligent people. All that comes into play.
So Simon's asking, Simon's making a comment here, mate, saying, it's bizarre how little guitar players want to sing. You ask a guitar player, do you sing? Oh, no, I don't sing, is often the reply. You might get them, some of them might say, well, I might sing some harmonies, and but I suspect what the real reason is, from my own experience, is that you don't want to F up the guitar playing. And singing. And it's an interesting thing, because we can jam with some friends, and I might bum some chords because I'm trying to hit that note. Yeah. So when I look at a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan, backed by a drummer and a bass player, playing this wicked guitar and sounding so good, my God.
Absolutely. I reckon if you want to really improve your guitar playing, sing to your guitar. Your guitar playing will expedite dramatically, because you have to have the chords to match your voice. So, there's the beauty of Mick Jagger is he's a very patient guy, so you can play behind him. But if you really wanted to be a great musician, you sing along with your guitar.
And I think that's one of the reasons why Mick is such a good singer, because it's very clear that he was playing guitar very early on. He knew some chords, didn't he? It's very clear.
Yes. I mean, Sway, that's him on guitar. That's probably the first part, the first time he played guitar in the studio.
I would say he was playing guitar back in 64, 65, mate. I reckon he would have been certainly amongst the band, maybe not in a recording studio.
Oh, definitely. To help him write songs, him and Keith would always have, guitar each.
So Simon's saying something that you and I have mentioned lots of times. How does he go from being a Londoner, but speaking in a southern US accent and get away with it? That's why Beggars Banquet Simon is so good, because you're hearing this great music, but you're watching. I don't know. No, you're hearing someone acting.
Dear Doctor.
It's brilliant. It's amazing.
Prodigal Son.
It's just. Yeah. That's why we're Stones nuts, because how old was he? How old would he have been in 68?
25, 26.
Yes, still a young cat. But just having the nuts to sing like that.
Well, yeah, every song there was different. It's almost like every song is not only different lyrics, obviously different songs, but there's a different personality as well. Salt of the Earth. A drinking song at a bar, Factory Girl, Blue Collar. You can just hear the minimum wage, and you can hear
Factory Girl's just brilliant for a vocal, isn't it? You just listen. You listen to that. Oh, yeah. We have to have a show on Beggars Banquet.
All right, I got to wrap this up.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. No, cool. So 1, 2, 3. So basically, I've got 4 songs left. 3 are from Tattoo You, and that'll coincide with our Tattoo You tribute next week.
Yeah.
I might as well just talk about the song now, because it's probably not going to be relevant to anything in the future.
What is it?
This is my 25th riff, and it's just their last song, and I just loved it as a kid watching it on MTV and TV. And it was based on, and once again, the Rolling Stones know how to amalgamate something on the news or something political and turn it into a song. Under Cover of the Night.
I always miss that one.
How do you mean?
I forget that song.
Oh, it's just a great song. I mean,
that's where it goes.
Yeah. It just but and obviously after that they went into the next period where they became family men, and a bit more, the classic period was over, but that was their last great song, I think, for me. Keith's riffs, Mick's singing, tight band, drumming, great video, and so, but in conclusion with everything, there was a 25 greatest Stones riffs, and just watching it this morning, another guy had it. He was playing the guitar, and so we've got about 18 of the 25 that he picked. So we're not doing too bad. He picked some stuff that I wouldn't agree with, but that's okay. That's why we're all different.
Yeah. So Simon's, before we wrap up, so you can tell a song written and sung by a singer, guitarist, as opposed to a singer. Yep. You follow the chords if you are playing and singing, but if you're singing, you're right. That's a good point, Simon. And he's making reference to your last song. That video was directed by Julian Temple.
And Undercover. Well, it was about,
I'm going to go and watch that again.
Colombia and the drugs and the politicians and the corruption and Julian Temple. Google him real quick.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Interesting looking guy. Okay. Sex Pistols. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. He did a huge career of videos.
That's when videos meant something. That's when videos were telling stories.
Wow. Now, Julian was a monster. So God Save the Queen. Hey, hey, my, Neil Young, Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, Judas Priest.
Wow.
Stray Cat Strut, Stray Cats.
That's an awesome video.
One of Andrew's favourites, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me by Culture Club. You got anything coming? Here we go. So he did State of Confusion, Too Much Blood, and Undercover the Night for the Stones. She Was Hot was a good video, Stones.
Yeah.
Smooth Operators, Sade.
And the Great Rock and Roll Swindle. Simon's saying the Great Rock and Roll Swindle, which is the film, the movie.
Free Falling, Tom Petty.
Outstanding.
Another one of Andrew's favourites by Brian Adams. Everything I Do It for You. Into the Great Wide Open, Learning to Fly, Tom Petty. So he's very well sought after and did a lot of good work. Yeah.
And Sonia's just jumped in as we're about to wrap up the show, Sonia. So always good to see you. Next week, if you want to tune in, Carl and I are going to talk about Tattoo You, that album, the time, the people that album influenced. So if you want to tune in and catch up with us next week, Sonia, you're more than welcome. And also you can watch the replay. Always good to see you.
Tattoo You might even take two shows.
Oh, Sonia's been watching. Oh, cool. Thanks, Sonia.
Tattoo You could even be 2 shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone in the chat, it's always a pleasure for you to jump on and support Carl and I. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Jason and Jim, our men from the south who joined us earlier. Thanks a lot for supporting us. And you, my friend, have a good week.
Yeah. No, I just noticed I've got to get a few things done. It's raining like crazy. It's cold as hell. I just, I've got no heating here. It's a bit annoying. So I've got to
do something.
Yeah. Hey, no, good show. It just goes to show, we're always learning. Yeah, you about the Santana and Neil's shown, and I learned some things today too. Just that's the beauty of these shows. Just, I mean, I like you're 50-50, 50% structure, 50% just let it flow.
Oh yeah.
We're not robots.
No, it's always good. It's always good. I'm here to learn, man. I'm here to learn and just share my passion about some great music. So it's always good though to have our friends, jump in on the chat and Simon, we certainly look forward to you jumping on. So you're going to have to clear your day, mate. That'll be a 2-hour show. Okay. Thanks, people.
Good night.